Welcome back to part 2 of this, Diamondback Viper. Yes, we did the wheels. That's a video that'll be listed below in the description if you want to check out that. This particular, we're on phase 2 of 3. The second phase is going to be doing the headset and the bottom bracket 3-piece of a vintage 84 bike. 1984 that is. Is that a movie? Yeah, that's right. Big Brother. Well, Big Brother is, whatever, not going there. In any case, we're going to take the brakes off, clean them up, but we're going to do the bottom bracket and the headset overhaul on this particular segment and kind of get it ready for the frame to be detailed or clean and polished. But without further ado, let's dive into this Diamondback Viper. Yeah, let's check out the mystery of the bottom bracket and the headset that's been laying around for decades after this. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary how to use one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe. Hey, welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. Hey, I'm Justin the Guy, and we're working on this Diamondback Viper. Yes, we're going to actually pop into the bottom bracket, clean that up, get some grease in there, clean the cranks, pedals. Also, we're going to pop the headset on this guy. That way we can make sure everything is cleaned out with fresh grease. I mean, it feels okay, so I don't think there's going to be too much of a mystery in this, but you never know. I highly doubt that the headset has been touched since it was actually manufactured. It does look like the OEM adjustable 1-inch with a weird lock ring on there. We'll talk about that when we go over the headset itself. And the bottom bracket, this was an aftermarket upgrade. What brand is that? Tourney style Tenge. I believe it's a Japanese with a bolt pattern chainring. It's actually pretty high end considering the vintage on this. Not sure exactly when, but probably pretty soon after the bike was purchased, this was upgraded. Looking at how everything else kind of goes together. Waiting on the chain. I'm going to also clean the pads that goes on there as much as I can. But what I'm really trying to do is get the bones of the bottom bracket and the headset cleaned up and so forth. And once I get to that portion of it, then I can open this up and take the brakes off to do detailing of the frame as much as I can. This has kind of a paper style decaling stickers. So I want to really kind of go light and polite on those. Basically, maybe just water with a little bit of light soap, if that. But everywhere else in between on the chrome portion of it, I'm going to use a polisher to kind of bring out the chrome the best possible. And double check everything. Make sure it's at its finest, best scenario, best condition, refurbish-ish kind of thing. So yeah, I don't restore bikes, but I'm doing as close as I can on restoring this. The wheels, check out the video on that. Did a maximum amount of work on those, like at least 4 or 5 hours just on the wheels themselves. The headset and the bottom bracket, don't think it's going to be that long, but from here on out, it's probably going to be another 4 to 5 hours to get to completion, and then it'll be ready for its next adventure, even if it's in the museum. Awesome. Any case, let's dive into this. First off, I need to get the brake out of the way. I'm going to be doing brakes and cables, brake cables and housing, because you can just see how, I don't know, it's just old. Then to take these caliper style, it's basically a bolt, 10 mil. I'm going to use old school tools. Yeah, usually I bought those fancy socket set from Park, thinking like back in the day, I really want a nice set of actual tools. I hardly ever use them because everything is pretty much metric Allens. So I use the Allen Park set like back there, and also the work Allen loose individual Allens here the most. In any case, also the Y wrench or the Y Allen. But in any case, going back to this guy, this has a nut on it. It has plastic as a gasket washer type thing. So you want to keep track of all these. These have a special spacer, washer, if you will, that are curved to accommodate the edge around the actual brake or the brake portion of the old school fork. Newer ones are pretty much, I don't know, some of the inexpensive newer bikes are very similar style. This is also a diacomp brake, which is vintagely known. So I'll throw those in the ultrasonic cleaner to get those cleaned up. And then I need to get rid of, see how all rusted in that cable. So yeah, the cable and housing definitely needs to be replaced. Also another note on these guys, not going to take them off, but they have this little housing stop. These guys, don't lose them. I'll take them off and clean them, but you can find them on eBay or whatever if you lose a set. But they are kind of specific to the style of brakes. You got to have that to be able to use the actual cable pull through the housing. So keep that in mind. So I'll clean those up. But then we're gonna let's just get the rest of this housing off. It has a fancy little bracket. These little metal brackets were used on Dura-Ace cables and housing on the road bike stuff. So very similar. I'll have to get my better spectacles to identify the stamping on this. It probably just says Diacomp on these, but it's basically a nut and bolt type thing. And you know, the modern day we use zip ties. This is prior to the zip tie kind of thing. So, and you can hear it squeaking as I'm unscrewing it out, and maybe it's no longer engaging or degaging. The lock nut portion is broken free. Let's take a look at that. Oh, I got a little bit of corrosion on underneath this one. So yeah, definitely going to want to take these out. It's been sitting outside a little bit and they just come off like so. And got a little gunk. So basically, this is what we're looking at. A nut, bolt. The other one, the nut, the little clamp things to hold that nut in place have come out. So I will be cleaning these. Probably just throw it in the ultrasonic cleaner. And basically, I'm just going to try use some needle nose to hold the nut as I try to, you can't really get to it with a open box. So we'll see. There we go. Yeah, careful when you use your needle nose. You don't want to use them on your nuts, just on the nuts on the bike. Unless you're in that kind of needle nose club. Said no one never. So, any case, enough about nut jokes. But, you know, some bikes like this, you end up busting a nut. So, whatever. Trying to get it fixed up. All right, so we got ourselves, and the housing just drops right off, which is fine. I'll measure that out, but same kind of thing. Doesn't look too bad. Just needs to be cleaned up. And what are we calling this? Oh, it's just a Diacomp. The fancier ones on old school road bikes will actually have a stamp on Dura-Ace, which is kind of cool. So this just opens up that area so I can get to where I'm going to be working at. I'm going to take off the rear brake while I'm here. So again, just a ratcheting box, closed box wrench is usually your friend when it comes to bikes like this, because it'll take forever to do it if it's not. Or you can use a socket, but when you get a tire and so forth in there, a socket might be a little bit better. In any case, this is how I get those off. This does have the same tapered, actually no, it's built in. It's actually a welded in tapered washer there. So that's kind of cool. That's a little finite detail that you don't see a lot of times in today. So, okay, so we got the frame kind of exposed. So we're just going to work from front to back. So we're going to first start off with the headset. But we got to get those pesky bars out of the way. How are we going to do that? All right, this actually does use the Allen. Sometimes it's just like an open box nut. Got to figure out which. Looks like this one's going to be a 6mm. get that in there. Make sure it's flush. What it is an old school quill stem, which means there's a wedge inside. So you gotta break it loose, which wasn't too tight on this one. And you unscrew this out a little bit. This pulls it up, but the wedge is still engaged. So, I know it sounds crazy, but use a hammer. You want to lightly tap this, or if you're really professional, you get yourself a punch so you're not dinging up the already dinged up stem. So that way you hear that pop and it goes down. The wedge is released. So if we're lucky, this bad boy is going to just basically slide out. Here's the catch. Some bikes will not slide out very easily because they didn't put lube on this when they actually first inserted it into the stem. This one doesn't have any grease, but luckily for us, it didn't corrode and wasn't too tight of a DI in there. And that's their little wedge cam system. So we're just going to set this aside. So it's out of the way. Now, basically, this is just like your hub. You got a fixed side, and then you have your adjustment nut side. Sometimes you got to have a wheel in there to get leverage. And this is where I'm busting out some old school tools, which I know where they're at, since I don't hardly use them. They get further away from my center of my bench. So this looks like this is a 30 millimeter. Well, maybe. Yeah. And since the bars are off, now it feels a little chunky. Okay, so if you don't have the wheel in there, which I don't, you can take some long shaft rubber thing to wedge it. But you don't want to be, overly, if it's really hard, get the wheel back in there, because you don't want to compromise the fork blades on this, because nobody in the world anymore has the fork mount or tool to realign and cold bend steel forks. Probably somebody does out there. I looked into it. Some guy was still trying to sell one for like 200 bucks or 100, whatever, too much for me. I'm like, why is this still even a thing? Okay, I got to grab another handful of old school tools. This has a hook lock ring on there. These unscrew typically the same direction, and hopefully, I may not have the angle on this, which is no bueno. So you go even further back in time and grab yourself your fancy vice grips that you've had for the last 45 years. I think these were my dad's, and I remember seeing them in the 80s. So just to hold it in place, not to scar it. I'm lucking out, very lucky, because this is unthreading, screwing out without too terrible. The threads on this are a little gunked up from over time, a little bit of corrosion, dirt, whatever. I will clean this up and put a little light grease on the threads. So when I put this back together, and again, I am laying my parts out in order, so I know how to put it back together. I've done enough of these over in the, well, not recently, but in the 90s. I did a crap ton of these, where pretty much is muscle memory or opposed to, like shock. And there's also a spacer, flasher in here that's keyed. And the keyed is a slot in the back. That helps it from riding the threads back and forth when you're tightening it. You got to have that to hold the crown race portion that goes against the bearing versus the lock nut, because they will bind up each other and you won't get it to be able to tighten up. That's where this keyed spacer is very important. It keeps those from, enables you to be able to adjust it. And knowing there's not very many videos probably about adjusting headsets that are threaded, that is going to be your golden go-to. Okay, same thing. These were, yes, these are just etched, so you have a gripper on it. Really is designed for vice grips, because the toolbox in the 80s for a bike shop was about a third of what you see behind me, and the other third would be non-existent, and the other third of that would be your typical regular screwdriver, adjustable, socket wrench, whatever. Still metric to some level, but a lot less. But let's, this is binding up a little. Not that surprising. It's just gunked up, and by unscrewing this out, you are kind of cleaning out the threads, but this whole assembly, I'm going to want to put in the ultrasonic cleaner to clean up, or you can throw it in a jar with a good degreaser to get all this 30 years plus worth of gunk off. It looks okay. I can still see that ring where the bearings roll up against and doesn't look terrible. So that's a good sign. And you'll have a bearing set. Hey, at least the ball bearings didn't drop out underneath. I've had that before. And the cages still look like they're intact. So we're just going to do a very good cleaning of those. And also the cups that are in here. If this is a scenario where this has been compromised, you may want to put a new headset in. I'm sure you'll probably find one on there on eBay. This has a layer of grease that is, I would say, a good 30 years dried out. What we're going to try to do is get this all completely cleaned up and degunked and that kind of thing. Same thing with the cups. Granted, this is not a high-end headset. We're looking at a headset that doesn't have any seals or any of that kind of jazz. So we want to pack this with a bunch of grease to act as a water deterrent from getting into those bearings. Actually, I'm very pleasantly surprised so far that I haven't had any completely failures, the ball bearings dropping on the floor and all that kind of thing from the compromised cages. This is still pretty good. Still, ha ha ha. All right, since I just assembled this, I'm going to clean this, crank some tunes, put some ultrasonic, put some elbow grease into it. We'll review the parts and reassemble after this. That is steel. Ooh, pokey, pokey. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Okay, while those parts are cleaning for the headset, we're going to go ahead and take apart the bottom bracket and the crankset and start cleaning that too, so we can do all assembly in one shot. This is what we do to multitask to get these cranks going. So first we got to remove the pedals. Hopefully they've not been seized on there. Oh, no, actually not too bad. And if I can unscrew this off with my fingers mostly, that means it's pretty good. And I'm looking at this crank, and the non-drive side doesn't have a lock nut on it, and it's just kind of loose. So I don't think these were installed correctly from the beginning. So we're going to clean these guys up just with soap and water. I'm not going to put them in an ultrasonic cleaner because sometimes the exposed bearings like this, if I was going to take them completely apart and clean them out, that'd be one thing. I think I'm just going to do soap and water and just inject some grease into the bearings because that's what I'm just going to do. So I'll put my tool away. Okay, so on these guys, I have a flat head. You can use this or a quarter to fit in the slot. Actually, I'm going to use a quarter. Interesting fact, out of a bag, there's this dirty old quarter. So perfectly fits in here. Yeah, that's not going to scar up. These are plastic. You can probably hear the squeaking of the plastic come out. There's something living in there. So the plastic I'm not going to ultrasonic clean. I'll just hand wipe them down. Reason being, it's over 30 years old, so plus. So this is plastic is going to be kind of brittle, so we want to be careful on those. And lo and behold, we got a rusty, usually these are 14 millimeter. We'll just do a better look on this. So it's a 14 millimeter and hopefully not tight at all. So question would be, oh, you see the rust just falling out of there? So we'll definitely put those in vinegar. A little baggie of vinegar to start with, and ultrasonic cleaner to kind of neutralize the rust, and then use the cleaning agent after that. Both sides rusty. For these, your typical crank arm removal tool, which is the push pin design, blow out all the remnant rust. Crazy. So I want to make sure I don't cross thread this. This goes in pretty good. And make sure it's flush all the way down. Reason being is when this pin engages, I don't want to strip any of the threads on the actual crank, and man, that is not on there tight whatsoever. So you guys see the little scary fuzz in there? Crazy. Crazy, crazy. Alright, so we'll be cleaning those, wondering if this side is the same. So if you see here, I got threads like going all the way out. On the other side there is no threads, and we'll show you here in a second when I start taking the bottom bracket apart. And down here is where the serial number is. That's where you'll see most of the bikes. Yeah, it's not on there tight. Honestly, when these cranks were put on, I do not think they were actually used. Just sat in the elements. So I'll probably cook the cranks only one time in there. So you see, I hold this down. I'm supposed to be able to, and it's reverse thread. So when I unscrew this out, it's an indentation where there should be like a lock washer, and still some grease in there, not like the headset. If you look on this side, it does have the lock washer. So I'm really questioning how this is all in there, because yeah, I'm not sure. Oh, that's finger tight too. In any case, we might have to do a little research on this. And it's also keyed too, like I mentioned on the other one. To see if I, man, that's really skinny. I don't know if I have that as a, okay, so you see the threads are super long on this side. So I think what happened was, this is supposed to be this way. And this locks down, whoopsie, first drop, do a shot, locks down here, and then you adjust on that side. And which you see the stamping, reading it this way is typically how you'd read it when it goes on there, not upside down. So, and oh yeah, that's still good too. Alright, so I'm going to clean these, clean this all out, see if I can find just something to lock it down on the drive side. Maybe it just wedges into the frame. Or no, that wouldn't be right. I mean, but this is a different kind of bottom bracket. It has like a stop, so that prevents it from going all the way. So maybe that's the thing, is the wedges on there tight. There's like maybe a thread or two, not even enough for a lock. So maybe that's what's going on. So I'll put this in the vise, crank it down tight, maybe put a drop of Loctite on the threads here. Yeah, to hold this in place, and then use the other side, which is supposed to be your adjuster side, and press in the bearings. Think I got it figured out. Let's clean these bits, keep cranking on the ultrasonic, and we'll throw it all back together here momentarily after this. Here we have it. Oh, look at those bars. I cleaned them with soap and water. I will do detailing in the next video with ceramic coating and gets the grips to be cleaned off. Hopefully the all-surface cleaner from Lithium will do it. And there's the fork. Yep, clean that race, and also clean the threads with a thread chaser to clean those up. They had a little burr on there, so it's all ready to go. And bam, those are the bearings all cleaned up. Ready to go. Look at that quarter. It even shined up in there. Spindle. And if you look at this, here's the tricky bit. I put Loctite on here. And this one has a recess for this, which was on the opposite side. So in my theory, this was supposed to be fixed on the fixed side here. So once that is jammed on there, it should work. And these three bits here are for the adjuster side, which is this one here. So it was flipped over and one of the bolts were thrown over. Look how clean these came up. I mean, considering how rusty they were, those come out really good. And wow, snap. Look at the crank set, 44. These are made in, Japan. Tataki is the brand, 170 cranks, 44 tooth. Touring, which is pretty sweet looking. We'll see what that looks with a little bit of ceramic coating with the detailing version. I cleaned up the pedals, put a little bit of grease in the bearings to smooth them out, clean the little bits. Brakes, ultrasonic clean. So kind of scuff up those pads, see if they actually work well. I mean, they should work just fine. That's that. Well, reviewing the parts, I cleaned the bottom bracket cup set. This is a fixed cup, one piece bearing system, which I could have gotten a new one, or you can get a new one, but the bearing races all look good. And here's the headset. It looks all good too. So we should be good for reinstall. Let's throw this bad boy back together, at least partially, before I do detailing. Yeah, for something so simple, it got super complicated. That's pretty much my world in the bicycles. If you're going to do it right, that's what I'm going to have to do. If I'm not going to be able to do it right, I'm just not going to do it at all. So in that case, I'm spending a lot of extra time on this particular one to make sure that is its best performing factor. And that's just one of those things. So we're going to put the fork back together, threaded, and then we're going to put the handlebars and stem on so I can do the detailing in the next video. But I want to show how this all works. First, you want to get a good layer of bearing grease. There's a lot of different greases out there. You want to make sure it's a bearing and grease. And there's, you can use Phil Woods. You can do the fancy Shimano stuff. This is Finish Line bearing grease, which I like because it's a whiter color. It used to be white, if I'm remembering correct, but it's kind of, I don't know, discovered over the years. I did have some ball bearings pop out when cleaning. You can put those back into the cage and kind of crimp those down so gently with some needle nose. And that actually kind of saves that cage bearing. And since, like we said before, there's no seals to this headset, so I'm just going to go liberally with a lot of grease and pack it into that bearing container as best as I can and make sure that has the best water prevention shedding as possible, like so. And then I just repeat for the bottom. Oh, I did that. Hopefully I can flip it upside down, but if I do it, get enough grease packed in there, it should hold its position before I get that race in there. And make sure it's evenly coated and a little, oh boy, a whole bunch in there. Yeah, we're good. So clean my fingers off. All right, fork. You can put a little layer here too, just for fun. It did clean up. The races look smooth, and I'm going to put a little bit on the threads as well. Not a whole bunch, just enough to make it easy for the threads to go on there. And be careful not to cross thread. So remember, you're going to go backwards. Backwards reassembly, not go backwards, right? So gonna go, and don't put it upside down. Here you go. So you got the bottom, fits good, and you got the race, and this should just go on kind of easily, not cross. If it starts cross threading, you want to back off and clean those threads off again. But it should be like this, just threads right in. And there's that one little section where it got burred by probably the spacer, that keyed spacer. That keyed spacers can wedge up against those threads, and through that slot on the back side there, could booger them up. And we'll see. I think it was a little bit higher. So just little, not cranked down tight, just back it off a little bit so smooth. We're not adjusting. We're going to be adjusting this when the wheels are back on and when it's all reassembled. That's when you can actually feel a knock. So that's that key washer. And it has a beveled size. I like to put the bevel side up so it's a little more non-contact. The reason why you have the key, this is the lock one. So this is weird because it has 3 threaded portions. Technically, this one locks down, but the other one locks down on top of it. I don't know. It was over-engineered back in the day, kind of thing, where they didn't really have a fair idea of it. So you thread that down, because now you're forced with 3 different. If you know the reason why they had 3 different ones, put some comments below, or a theory, because typically from here on out is just the race that was threaded with a slotted, bolt, kind of you can get a flat wrench in there, and then a nut on top of it with a space in between. That was it. This one's 3. Like they were worried that was going to come apart or something. Over-engineered at the time, maybe that was it. But then I thread this on top. This smashes up against that top one, and this is also a 30 millimeter. You can use a crescent wrench too. So you don't want it tight, but you want it to be, loose. And it's spinning loose, but you don't want any major play. And that's when you go readjust it when the wheel's on there, because it'll act a little bit different with a little more of a torque on there. So, bam. That's how you get the headset back together. Now, throwing the bars back on there. Remember we had to use that 6 millimeter. And this is what they call a quill stem. Sometimes the quill will burr out the shaft of the of the fork steer tube. So you want to be mindful of that. Some like the 10 speeds I got on the corner here, you'll have that with these quills, depending. Not so much I've seen on this, because they really put a lot of steel on this. You can put a little layer of grease, which is recommended, because this is going to wedge in there and it's not going to slip once it's wedged. And maybe a little bit of grease on the threads on the inside there. Reason being is you want to be able to pay it forward. You pay it forward by liberally grease this. That does 2 things. 1, prevents the rust happening that was already occurring inside there, as you can kind of see on my brush. And second, make it easier to remove again. So always put some grease on that. And there will be a height limit line on there somewhere, on most of them, if not all of them, indicating that the depth, right here, height limit line. So you can't have this any higher than that. It has to go down at least that point to be safe. So that's the point of safety. We'll just put it up a little bit higher. It was flush all the way down before, but just to give it a little more extent. And tighten that bolt down, it'll start wedging. So then when it's not tight down all the way, you can kind of bring it up to that height limit line, wherever that may be. That way, if it's a bigger kid, you can adjust it, and when you sell it or somebody sells it, then go, well, that's how high it goes. You can go down, but no higher than that. Give that a good crank, and this is where you want to get some good leverage, but I'm not going to do it too tight, because again, I need that front wheel on there to know where the position is on that. So, bam. See if this works. Wow! Without giving myself a bloody nose. Pop! Ah! Pop! Ah! Any case, you won't be able to do that, but this is not a... well, if you take the front... Well, if you don't have any brakes, yeah, you can do that. But there is a freestyle bike style that has the cables with a little gyro, which is every mechanic's nightmare. I still have cold sweats in the middle of the night working on gyros from Dyno, GT brand, and some other ones out there. Those just worked ever. In any case, let's go to the bottom bracket and check out if we can get that bottom bracket through axle in there. Okay, first we're gonna do, remember that flatted side, and you want to do obviously well, maybe not so obvious, the race inside, but that's where the bearing is going to run up against. So I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to use the vise, lightly hold a square pattern, not on the threads, and if anything is matchy-matchy, it'd be 30 to 30 to 30, and then I'm going to Get this in there, wedge that on there. Therefore, this is the fixed side. Boop. Drive side. If I totally mess this up, well, we'll know. I'll show you in the spacing afterwards. Weird. Anyway, back to bearing grease. Yes, this is a fine arts brush. Used to be a fine artist back in the day. Went to art school, all that good stuff. For Father's Day, my daughter has got me a acrylic paint kit and a couple canvases, and we're going to do some painting. Obviously not with this brush, but she gave me a new brush set. So we're going to watch some Bob Ross videos and give me a refresher, a 101, how to paint landscapes and bicycles. Okay, so there's that. Same concept here as the headset. Put the bearings in. Okay, the cages. So big ball bearings, big balls showing out. Go on the inside. Same thing for the inside compression. Big balls in. And because the race, let me show you. Okay, the race doesn't, you know, it would look like it worked this way, but that race is going to go right up against that cup. So that bearing race fits on the inside of the balls on the outside of the cage, bearing cage, and that's where you get that fluid motion. So big balls in. And hopefully you put enough grease in there so it sticks into place. Then you proceed to Bob Ross the heck out of these bearings. So they hold in place. Same concept. There is no rubber gaskets or seals on these. So these balls are exposed. Exposed Bob Ross balls. Wait, what? No, that's not right. Ball bearings. And you want to pack that grease inside those cages as much as you can. That reduces any kind of friction which is going to be happening on these. And you don't have to worry about if it's a left or a right side cage, because they're not, unless it's like some weird headset. Sometimes we'll have like a different bearing, well, not loose bearings like this, but cartridge bearings. So let's get the Bob Ross going on in here. Pack this up. Man, this angle is okay. All right. More the better on these. Big old sloppy mess, and whatever oozes out, you just wipe off. I mean, it's better to have it super gooey than not gooey at all. So there's your gooey Bob Ross balls. Painted balls. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we have our fixed spindle here, right? And we got a 30 millimeter tool. My tool is a little bigger than 30 millimeters, but you know, don't tell my wife that. And I got a lock nut, and I got a key spacer, which will fit in this recessed race. So without further ado, we insert the spindle of the Bonner bracket spindle in like so. And also this is keyed, so that was another thing that was a quick disclaimer that it was on the wrong side. So there we go there. Then we proceed with the race, and these are threaded backwards, so righty tighty, lefty loosey is the opposite of that. And you want to make sure those races stay in there. And also, if it binds up, you may have gotten that race in incorrectly. Balls out instead of balls in. So keep that in mind. And you want to not super tight, but you know, get to a point where about in between. Then the lock spacer on this particular one. And same thing, it'll have a beveled edge one. The flat, beveled edge outwards. Lock nut, see how it has kind of like a oomph, and the tapered's as well out, like so. So you'll be able to adjust these two by, like hubs, you back it off and you tighten this down, because that lock washer should hopefully hold it in place, like so. Need the crank on there to be able to get it to be tight. And to test it and to see that your spacing's correctly, slide this on here. Not tight, not smashed. And then we have a problem. Okay, so this is too tight over here. It's really close. And this side, super gap. So, trying to go back in the 80s and rethink this. Maybe they have the adjustment side like they kind of had it on the other side. That would be weird, because that's usually where you adjust it. That kind of thing. But that's where we're looking at there. So let's flip that and see what we got. Remember, balls in. So this is a weird, non-standard bottom bracket. And, you know, it's one of those situations where it doesn't surprise me, because they play with these particular designs. And, you know, they even do those weird wackadoodle things today with different things, like press fit bearings, for example, which is, ask any mechanic before they decided to do that, is this a good idea? And pretty much 9 times out of 10, you know, mechanics being like, nah, not stupid. So, any case, at least we're getting somewhere on this, because remember, the recessed one was on this side, which was not the right one. Can't be the right one. And here's this guy. Unless they had some dual purpose intention on this. So we'll just lightly tighten that up. So it holds place. Still fairly smooth, and I am dripping in the hot 90-degree weather that we're having right now. Okay, then I put this bad boy back on. Spacing here the same. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, apparently that's how it goes on. Loctite that one, so I know it's not going to back off, and even though they haven't flipped the cone races. So, needless to say, it's a good thing I tore into it and cleaned it up. Well, it definitely needed it, but then now it's installed correctly. Weird as weird can be. If you've seen BMX biomarkers from the 80s like this, please comment below. There's some clarity to the community that here. I will adjust this if I can get my tool in there. It looks like I can get my tool in there once it's compressed on there. That's a weird thing. Say that 4 times fast. Anyway, that's how you repack a bottom bracket. If it's a one piece, the one piece has one side just like the fixed side, like we did initially. Go around, then you thread the pieces over. Same concept as a one piece. So this is a one piece bottom bracket, but the spindle is a weird one. Probably proprietary to that particular crank. And there we have it. Bottom bracket and headset. So thanks for hanging out with me. The next video I'm going to have linked below is going to be detailing the frame. And I'm going to do a little polishing of the frame, polishing the fork, polishing the bars. I already did the wheels. That's another video listed below. But do some detailing and throw the cables on there and the wheels and get it all buttoned up. I'm waiting for that chain to be installed. But other than that, we'll do some detailing tricks using lithium products to get this thing as bad as refurbished as possible. Not restored, refurbish. Restoring is getting new stickers and all that. I'm taking what I have and make the best of it. Refreshing. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. If you have a bike like this or have been playing with tinkering and that, please put comments below. There's a shared community here. It makes you to make this channel, so thank you so much. In addition to, I'll have other information in the description below. Hey, thanks for hanging out with me in the garage. And if it's nice in your neck of woods, please go for a ride. And hey, check out some of these pictures of some random bits of what I may have just did after this. Thanks again for hanging out with me. Until next time.